Hi, I am Jandy, and I'm a blogger at Flickchart.com, and I'm going to do some flickcharting today. I decided that I would do my work within my top 1,000 movies filter. As you see, I have just over 3,500 movies ranked, and my top 1,000 seems like it could use some work. So I'm gonna hit my top 1,000 right now under the filters, and let's see what we get. See if we get any movement today. All right, so first off, I've got the film version of Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead versus Orson Welles' Touch of Evil. Now, this is based on the Tom Stoppard play, which is one of the best plays I've ever read. It's really good, or seen. I have seen it live as well. The movie version is a little bit different than the play. It has a lot of scenes that are different, a lot of little bits that are different. I like the play version better, even though I can't really fault the film version too much since Tom Stoppard himself did the adaptation. So clearly he did it the way he wanted to, but and it is really good. If you don't know, it's about the two minor characters in Hamlet. So the Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead actually shows the events of Hamlet from the point of view of these two minor characters who really have no idea what's going on. So you kind of follow them around and they philosophize about things, and that's really what it is them kind of walking and talking, but it's more interesting than it sounds. And then the events of Hamlet will like randomly burst on stage, and Rosencrantz and Guildenstern are just clueless as to what's going on. It's really funny. But Touch of Evil is, Citizen Kane notwithstanding, maybe my favorite Orson Welles film. It's the height of sleaze, like the height or the depths of film noir, depending on how you want to put it. I recently rewatched it last year, I think, and I was really like, yeah, the reason this is considered the end of film noir is there's nowhere else to go from here. Like, it's as much in the sleazy depths as possible, and it's pretty great. So I'm gonna choose that over Rosencrantz and Guildenstern Are Dead, and yeah, it holds steady at 153. So next up, we've got 12 Angry Men, the fabulous courtroom drama, versus Alfred Hitchcock's British film The Lady Vanishes. Almost his last British film, not quite. He did one more between this and Coming to America, but this was kind of his last hurrah, really. The Lady Vanishes is a really great film. 12 Angry Men also. I probably shouldn't start. I was just thinking, I paused because I was like, I probably shouldn't start saying these are really great films because in my top 1,000, they pretty much are all going to be pretty solid films. That's the top more than third of my chart, and I tend to like most of the things I see. So the top 1,000 is all going to be pretty good. 12 Angry Men is one of the greatest examples I've ever seen of kind of a one-room film. Like everything happens in that one room except a little bit at the beginning and end. And the way that the actors, led by Henry Fonda and Lee J. Cobb and others, are able to keep the tension with that setup. And of course, first-time director Sidney Lumet is amazing. Uh, Lady Vanishes. I can't say a word bad about it, but I think I'm going to give the win to 12 Angry Men here. Yep, and it stays steady, 341, so I agree with myself. All right, next up we've got Coen Brothers stoner comedy The Big Lebowski versus Bruce Lee in Enter the Dragon. Uh, Big Lebowski is a film, I'm a big Coen Brothers fan, but Big Lebowski took me 2 or 3 viewings to kind of really get. Like the first time I saw it really wasn't for me, and then I saw it again and just immediately loved it, and now it's one of my most quoted movies, I would imagine. Enter the Dragon. I'm not that familiar with kung fu films in general, or martial arts films. I finally got around to seeing this one last year and really enjoyed it, but it pales compared to Big Lebowski for me. Next up, Spirited Away versus Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. Spirited Away is one of the highest regarded Miyazaki films, of course. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane, probably the last great film that Bette Davis or Joan Crawford ever made, and they're in it together. That's pretty amazing by itself. Whatever Happened to Baby Jane is a camp cult classic, and it is probably the scariest I've ever seen Bette Davis, for sure. She is terrifying in this movie, in a really good way. Spirited Away is great. It is one of my favorite Miyazaki's. I've not seen all of Miyazaki's films, but I do like this one better than most of the others, but I just can't get enough of Betty Davis in Whatever Happened to Baby Jane. So I might gain some enemies with this choice, but that is gonna win, and it stays steady at 93. I'm not sure where Spirited Away is. Obviously lower than that. Okay. Next up, we've got The Fifth Element. This is a weird poster for it. I don't even know what language that is. Anyway, Luc Besson's science fiction film um, versus Alfred Hitchcock's Dial M for Murder. This is a lesser Hitchcock to me. Like, it's good, but almost all of Hitchcock's films are good. So when you're talking about gradations of goodness, obviously this is in my top 1,000, so I do like it a lot. Um, it's not gonna hit the top of my Hitchcock chart. Fifth Element, on the other hand, I adore Mila Jovovich, and this is probably, yeah, it's definitely her best film. Well, I will say it's her best film where she's kind of a typical her. Like some films like The Claim, I think are better overall, but they're not Mila Jovovich films, you know. This one is, and she's amazing in it, and I can't get in that. A lot of people who don't like The Fifth Element will point to the all the Chris Tucker sections as being terrible, and I don't like those as much, but to me those pale in my memory compared to all the parts I do like. I mean, Bruce Willis is a meat popsicle. Like, come on, you gotta love that. So, Fifth Element wins over Dial M for Murder. Hold steady 273. All right, we're about 7 minutes into this now, and nothing has moved. So let's see if we can get some movement here. I don't think it's gonna happen here. We'll see. Inside Llewyn Davis, Coen Brothers' most recent film, at least until Hail Caesar comes out. And then versus Made in USA, which is a Jean-Luc Godard film from 1966. He made this right after Pierrot le Fou, and he's getting close to when he's going to start getting more political. And this one does have like a Western, USA consumerist kind of pop art critique, I guess. It's a pastiche for sure, and took me a couple tries to really get into it, but I really do enjoy it now. Inside Llewyn Davis uh, wasn't an instant hit for me from the Coen Brothers, but kind of the more I thought about it, the more I appreciated what they were doing in it, and the cat's amazing, and Oscar Isaac is really, really good. So I'm gonna give the win to Llewyn Davis on that. Oh wow, that jumped 400 spaces. That is, I wanted some movement, but that is crazy sauce. That all right. We're gonna leave it. You know what? That's what happens sometimes with Flickchart. Flickchart. That's what happens. Like I said, I may not have re-ranked Inside Llewyn Davis since I kind of started thinking about it more, and it kind of got better in my head, shall we say? All right, let's move on. That was a big move. Um, Palm Beach Story, Preston Sturges versus The Lost Weekend, Billy Wilder. Um, these two, it's interesting getting Sturges and Wilder together because they both kind of pioneered the writer director role in Hollywood. Um, Preston Sturges a little bit earlier. Billy Wilder followed soon after. Uh, Lost Weekend is a big Oscar winner for Wilder. It won Best Picture, Best Director, and Best Actor that year. It's one of the first kind of films to really treat alcoholism as an actual thing, as opposed, and as a serious issue, not just as a funny thing for people to be getting drunk and falling over things. It kind of feels a little hokey now to some people, but I think it still has a lot of power. Palm Beach Story is hilarious. uh, but it's pretty slight overall. If I were gonna rewatch one, I would probably pick the Palm Beach Story just because it's a fun comedy, kind of a comedy of errors, relationship comedy of errors. But The Lost Weekend is the better film and has lasted better, so I'm gonna choose The Lost Weekend. Oh my goodness, there's another big move. See, that again is because probably last time I flick charted, I was choosing based on what I would watch more often, and a lot of times, I subscribe to the fluid flickchart theory. You can see that happening right now, those last two choices. Sometimes I make choices based on different criteria, depending on when I'm flickcharting and how I'm feeling that day. And that's okay. It all kind of moves around, and anything that's in my top little amount of space. There's also another problem I should point out in my top 1,000. One reason I'm doing this is I think, just looking at the way, when I look at how things fall in my chart, a lot of the things in the 700-800 range need to be swapped with a lot of things in the 400-500 range. So that may be what's happening here, is that these are actually finding their right spots because they're out of order. So hopefully that is the case, and hopefully if I do this enough, then those will all get swapped around where they ought to be. All right, next up, The Untouchables versus In the Mood for Love. I do really enjoy The Untouchables, one of my favorite gangster films. It's about Elliot Ness going after Al Capone, and it's got a lot of really great set pieces. One of my favorite Brian De Palma films, too. I'm kind of lukewarm on De Palma, but this is a good one, I think. A great supporting turn from Sean Connery. If it's a little over the top, it still works. And a really fun homage to the Odessa Steppe sequence from Battleship Potemkin. And almost even more, sounds terrible to say, that Kevin Costner rescuing a baby from going down the steps in a train station during a shootout is kind of more effective than the Odessa Steppe sequence. But in a way, it kind of is. I'm not going to deny what I feel. In the Mood for Love is me. I was going to say Wong Kar-wai's masterpiece, but I can't say that because I haven't seen all of his films. It's definitely an amazing film, though. Maggie Cheung and Tony Leung, very, very effective as a couple who fall in love, but they're married to other people, and they have kind of a very quiet, non explicit kind of relationship, and it's mesmerizing. It's one of those films I got to the end of it and I was like, this film is going to be with me for a long time, in the sense that I'm going to be able to rewatch this a lot of times and always get something else out of it. And I haven't rewatched it since that first time, but I definitely am sure I will throughout my life, and will grow ever closer to it, I'm sure. So I think In the Mood for Love is going to win this, but I do enjoy The Untouchables a lot. So 183. So that one's holding steady. My 1 to 200s I think are pretty good. So it's just that 400 to about 900 range that's iffy. So Purple Rose of Cairo versus Memento. This is a really charming Woody Allen film, set in the Depression era. The woman who finds her escape at the movies, as so many of us do, and actually entices the leading man that she is in love with off the screen. And it's really adorable. Memento, the first kind of big splash for Christopher Nolan, has that great backwards narrative technique, which, it's a gimmick, but it's a gimmick that really works in this film, and that's gonna win it over Purple Rose of Cairo. All right, Melancholia versus The Bad and the Beautiful. I like that we're getting a lot of kind of different films going on here. Melancholia is Lars von Trier's End of the World. It is every bit as beautiful and horrible as that sounds. The Bad and the Beautiful is 1950s kind of noirish, I guess, but more Hollywood Gothic, of Kirk Douglas as a producer and all these other people. Lana Turner, Dick Powell, and others are people who've worked with him, and they're kind of looking back on why he was a horrible person, basically. It's a solid film, and it has a supporting actress win for Gloria Graham. I see, there's her name right there. And Gloria Graham is one of my favorite kind of lesser known classic actresses, so that's a good one to see for her. But Melancholia overall is a much more affecting and memorable film. So yeah, 231, hold steady. All right, presenting Lily Mars. I would be curious if anybody else has this in their top 1,000, or or I should say the top third of their chart, just to be, how Flickchart works. This is a very lesser Judy Garland film that I happen to love since I was a kid. And it's basically just, it's one of Judy Garland's first adult roles. It's not really her first adult role because that was 1942's, the one with Gene Kelly. My mind's going completely blank. It's terrible. Yeah, I can't remember it. I'll have to edit it in the comments later or something. Anyway, but she just plays someone who wants to get on Broadway, and she goes and like basically stalks a producer until he lets her on Broadway, and it's no great shakes really. I can't defend it not on any rational level, but I saw it when I was in my teens and or early teens, and just really kind of enjoyed it and enjoyed her performance and her humor. She's very funny in this, and has some really unusual and hilarious numbers. So there's that versus, yeah. But on the other hand, we have Harold Lloyd Safety Last on this side. And Harold Lloyd is the third one of the great silent comedians. The other two, of course, Chaplin and Keaton. Lloyd has been slowly growing up my radar as I see more and more of his films. And Safety Last, I actually like a couple of his others better than Safety Last, but Safety Last is his most well known and does have the great set piece of him climbing the outside of a building. Uh, Lloyd actually did that climb himself, even though he was afraid of heights. And it's a pretty amazing feat. And it's going to win over Presenting Lily Mars. Yep. All right, now I've got Key Largo, the last Bogart and Bacall collaboration. On screen, that is. They collaborated off screen until his death. And versus National Velvet, which is another childhood favorite, of course. I was a huge fan of horses and classic film, and that's where those two things meet, is at National Velvet. Elizabeth Taylor, great child actress performance as Velvet Brown, who wins a horse and wants to take him steeplechasing, and does, even though it's against all odds, and she's not supposed to ride a horse because they have some weird gender thing and girls aren't allowed to be jockeys. Anyway, that's a whole thing that will have to be explained, I'm sure, to today's youth. But National Velvet's a great movie. It has great supporting turns from everybody. Mickey Rooney, who obviously here is billed as the lead, but is not, he's behind Velvet, of course. Uh, Velvet's parents, Donald Crisp and Anne Revere, are just incredibly um, incredibly warm and well-rounded characters for, and they wouldn't have to be because it's not about them, but the movie does a great job of making everybody stand out in the cast. Key Largo, though, I mean, that's a great it's just a great combination of people, not only Bogart and Bacall, but also Edward G. Robinson, Lionel Barrymore, Claire Trevor. It's just a great cast, and Robinson is a gangster who keeps them all holed up in a hotel on Key Largo in the Keys, the Florida Keys, as a hurricane is coming in. So there's a lot of tension, and it's very well acted by everybody. And this is a really hard choice. I'm basically rambling on about these because I have no idea what I want to pick. That's what's going on right now. National Velvet is the nostalgic choice, of course. Key Largo is the grown-up choice. I'm quiet right now because I'm thinking. And I am thinking that I am going to go with National Velvet. When all else fails, go for the older film, right? 3 years is still older. See what happened. All right, that moved up 200 spots. So, and I think that was a legitimate move too, because 400s to 200s those are pretty solid. So, all right. I guess I'm gonna have to rewatch National Velvet and Key Largo pretty soon, see if that's an accurate move. We'll let it stand for now. All right, The Adventures of Prince Ahmed versus The King and I. This is widely considered to be the first animated feature film from 1926, so it is silent. It is German by, I was going to say her name, but I'm going to mangle it. Let me see if I can pull it up. Lotte Reiniger. Lotte Reiniger. And it is shadow animated, as you can see that it has these cutouts, and that's basically, it's very 2D. It's these cutouts going on a 2D plane. It's a beautiful film. It's unique. I've never seen another film that has this style. I guess Reininger's other films did, but I haven't seen any of them. But in terms of a jump ahead for animated features, this is huge. I mean, this is 11 years before Snow White and the Seven Dwarfs. Uh, but The King and I also, I just love this film. This has been a favorite of mine since forever, and it's one of my favorite Rodgers and Hammerstein scores. And I think Deborah Carr in the lead does a great job. And Yul Brynner, of course, is the king. There's no other. Like, this has been made into a movie, a non-musical movie, a couple other times, and no one comes close. No one comes close to Yul Brynner. So. Um, as groundbreaking and as amazing as this is clearly the sentimental favorite for me, and that's gonna win. All right. So let's do a couple more of these. We're at 20 minutes, roughly 21 minutes. So let's do a couple more. LA Confidential versus Witness for the Prosecution. Um, One of the greatest neo-noirs. Really love this film. Witness for the Prosecution, really great courtroom drama slash comedy. Charles Laughton's in it. He's amazing. Elsa Lanchester's in it. She's amazing. Marlena Dietrich is in it. Don't need to say it. It's a great cast with a great script. The ending is a little, kind of throws it off a little bit, I think. Whereas LA Confidential is pretty great all the way through. This is a hard choice for me, as you can tell. It's one of the downfalls of ranking your top 1,000 is I like all the films. Um, do I give it to Billy Wilder? Classic? I think I'm gonna go LA Confidential. I'm feeling it. I'm feeling it in my soul that I need to go with the neo noir on this one. But this is close. Let's see what happens. Oh, well, LA Confidential is actually in my top 100. So clearly, I seem to have agreed with myself on that. All right, my daughter's actually waking up, so I probably should wrap this up. We're at about 20 minutes. All right, so thanks for watching. We'll maybe do this again. I've got a couple other filters I'd like to work on. I will see you all another time.